Good evening, everybody. Good evening and welcome to our monthly connection. We did not have one in January, so I feel like it's been forever since we got together. So many familiar members of our Awake and Wake community and newbies tonight. Welcome to everybody. We have a full 2 hours. We're just going to go straight on through with no break. But first, I want to acknowledge the amazing team of earthly helpers that Spirit has assembled. Let's see, most of the talk in the beginning there was Lynette doing a great job of calling out those of you who typed your name in the chat. We love Lynette. She's my executive producer of our now weekly podcast, and she creates wonderful short videos and lines up my readings. But I want to bring on screen, you all know Bev Garlic. Say hi, Bev, so you show up here.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, now look at these Bobbsey twins here. These two came out wearing these tops, and that was not planned to dress like. I would
not planned.
Not planned at all. I would like to introduce the newest member of our team, Stephanie Fennig. Stephanie, say hi.
Oh, very nice to meet everyone. So glad to be part of the team. Thank you.
And
Suzanne.
I had to have her say just a few words because with the speaker view only, now I'm on the screen, but we're going to have Stephanie just tell you a little bit about herself in just a second here. But Stephanie came up to me at an event in Reno, Nevada, I believe it was, last year, and offered her services. She comes from the corporate world and had all the qualifications I needed to help me promote my new book. But the goal was to bring her on to help alleviate some of the pressure that poor Bev is under. I want to acknowledge our other wonderful team members. Valerie is not on screen tonight, but she's in the background there. Valerie keeps track of all these registrations. She makes sure everybody has their link. And very importantly, she views and reads and responds to many of the emails that I don't have a chance to look at. And then we have Jayesh in South Africa, who does all of our technical things, all of the website issues. He deals with them when things are way over our head. And the whole new promotion we have going for my new book with contests and forums was all Jayesh's stuff, but not stuff, expertise. That's better. But the plan here now is that Stephanie is, just as of this month, come on full time with the team, like Bev. And she is currently, as you can see, sitting next to Bev at her home in Florida because this week she's learning the ropes all day, every day with Bev to learn about all the things that go into making this whole ripple spreading team function and flow. So Stephanie, would you just give us, tell us how it is you came to the Awakened Way?
Yes, absolutely. So just thrilled to be here. My husband and I have 2 of our 5 children have passed, and I found Suzanne through Messages of Hope, and that's, once I got that book and I started following Suzanne religiously. So as she mentioned at the Reno class, I felt really moved and almost urged to go up and ask her if she needed help, because I've spent the last 33 years in the corporate world doing all kinds of a host of different things, project management, marketing, media, that kind of thing. So I thought I really want to bring my work now and offer it to people who need hope, light, and love. And so to be part of this team is so awesome. To be part of the team, that is the mission. That is the mission, to send that around the world. And so pleased to be here. Bev's been an amazing host. She's like, nope, you're staying at my house. There's no Airbnb. She's just a wonderful host. And you all know, because you've been with her for how many years now. So so pleased to be here and partner with Bev to and the rest of the team to help keep all this moving.
We are just thrilled to have you here. And everybody, Stephanie just gave up the corporate job as of last week after all those years to do this work. And I can't pay her what the corporate world pays her. And she says, I don't care. My husband and I talked it over. We're going to work from the heart. So we're doing our best to keep everybody happy and flowing. So let me see if I forget anybody. Yeah, thank you so much. So this is her first time to sit in the driver's seat at one of these events. So thank you. Few announcements. I hope you are on our email list, all of you, and know about the book promotion. My new book, The Awakened Way, Making the Shift to a Divinely Guided Life, is available now on all major online book sellers, but it doesn't come out until April 30th. So in the meantime, we have a promotion going that allows you to pre-order now. And when you bring your receipt to www.theawakenedway.org, you get a free workshop that we now have online that will be for sale later after the promotion. But for now, it's a brand new one on healing messages. And we have a channeling session and one of these monthly connection sessions from the past. Those 3 gifts, plus a little contest to get your friends involved in pre-ordering, and that can earn you a chance for a reading with me and other prizes. So just check that out at awakenedway.org. Also, you have a chance to spend a whole day with me on the 17th of this month, where I'm going to be doing an in-person event in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, but it will also be live streamed. 21st Century Spirituality, Living the Awakened Way. Many of you have probably already been to one of my workshops, but if any of you are new, this is going to be a great introduction to all the tools for connecting with higher consciousness and coming to understand who we really are. Making the Connection, a weekend at Omega Institute in New York. All of these in-person events are all on the homepage of my website, right under the banner, under featured events. And of course, there's that cruise, Mediterranean. Bev, you might need to mute your camera if it's not, because it's bouncing back and forth between us. Okay. Well, before we jump right into all the things that I have to share with you, and that's 2 months worth of teaching from the spirit world, anything we don't get to tonight, I'll just carry over till next month's monthly connection. We always begin these with an invocation, just to acknowledge that we are one group consciousness, this community here, to feel the love and to really tune into this event. So would you join me in just allowing your eyes to close? And let's all take a nice, slow, deep, relaxing breath to release all of our human stuff that doesn't serve us right now. All right, move your awareness, please, to the heart. That's that bridge between human and soul. And turn up your light by thinking of something you're grateful for right now. This will just bring you into resonance with the higher energy that we're all going to be sitting in for the next 2 hours. And I'm asking my guide Sanaya to step in now as clearly as possible, guide my words, guide the energy, and provide a transmission of higher energy to all who are present. So may all of us be aware of the uplifting energy that's flowing. May we be aware we are the presence of love. May we hear exactly what we need to hear this evening so that we go forth and spread ripples of healing to our world as well as to ourselves. And so it is. Okay, cool. Nice. All righty. I have to tell you that my little dog Nellie decided to spend the 2 hours up here. Rusty's downstairs. The boys are hanging out downstairs and the girls are up here. She loves this energy. I've had some of you send me pictures of your pets staring at the screen when we do these events, and they can feel that energy. So I always start these events, as many of you know, with some of the latest evidence from my readings and interaction with spirit since we last met. And the reason I do that is not because we need convincing that the spirit world is real. It is, number one, every one of them will provide teaching points for us about connecting with spirit ourselves, how spirit works through us, how to know that spirit is present, but also to show us what is possible when we tune in across the veil. Because of course I pull out all the wows that happen, the things that even make me, clap like a trained seal when it happens in a reading, but mostly to celebrate what we are part of and to celebrate the web of connection that unites us all, to celebrate that our loved ones who have passed are not dead and gone. That's why I share it. So let's just dive right in. Did a reading for a woman who wanted to connect with her husband. I can't remember if I knew she wanted to hear from him or not, but as often happens, even if we have a certain person we want to hear from, other loved ones will come in as well. If you saw the movie Ghost, you know, there's Whoopi Goldberg, the medium, and the family members are crowded around behind her like, I want to talk. No, I want to talk. So sometimes it can be a little confusing, but many times it's also just fun as they pull me back and forth and share their messages, not always in order, but like a regular conversation because it's a party. So this woman's husband did come in, but her paternal grandmother came in first, I believe, blowing kisses right away, a symbol of how much she loved her. But she showed me that she passed from cancer, specifically said this is the paternal grandmother. And my client was able to confirm, yeah, her grandmother did pass from cancer. She showed me a piano around her that she liked to crochet and knit. And I wonder if all grandparents did, but all grandmothers did. But in this case, that was very accurate. Also showed she was a teacher when she was here, and she was. Several of the things my client had to validate with her father after the reading, asking him about his mother because there were things that she didn't know. And I love when that happens, teaching point here, because it shows that a medium is not just reading the mind, reading the memory field of the client. When they don't even know these things and have to validate it later, that's when the medium truly has to trust what's coming through because they can't validate it on the spot. But what was really cool was this woman's paternal grandmother showed me a famous swimmer from like the 20s or 30s. And I believe it was Babe Didrikson. She was big into many sports. I don't know what decade it was. It didn't matter. I saw that old-timey one-piece bathing suit, and I just knew that this woman was saying that she liked to swim, but most importantly, she said, my name is the same as a famous swimmer. Now, I knew it wasn't Babe, but what an unusual way to get a name through. And this thrilled me because my client didn't know, but checked with her dad. Her grandmother's name was Hilda May. Now, how unusual is that name? And there was a very famous swimmer from the past, known nationwide, whose name was Hilda May. That one really showed the cleverness of the spirit world. Loved it. So let's see. Oh, Hilda May Binns. There it is in my notes. So anybody will look her up. I didn't even need to look her up because Grandma validated it for me. So what was really cool was her teaching. She showed me how proud she was of being a teacher. She was a teacher of French and actually received an award from the French government for her accuracy in teaching that foreign language. So clearly, those in the spirit world love to share things that they were proud of and known for. Let's see. I sensed a grandfather. Many times when somebody is in the military, I just want to sit up straight. They'll salute me if they were enlisted because I was an officer in the Navy. But this grandfather had me really sitting up straight, and he didn't salute me. He made it clear I would have had to salute him. I said, your grandfather is telling me he was a general in the Army. And indeed he was. Woo! Goosebumps with that one. So that was pretty cool. So very unusual. Also, I felt his physical symptom of a heart attack between my shoulder blades. I knew he had a heart attack, but usually my heart will palpitate if there was a heart attack. I actually felt the shooting pain back there, and she confirmed that both her father and her grandfather her husband, sorry, that's who she'd wanted to hear from, had a heart issue and a heart attack and felt it between the shoulder blades. So very interesting. Her husband showed me this symbol, which means current event, now. Teaching point for those of you working as mediums. My symbols may not work as your symbols. The spirit world will use something for you to indicate a common occurrence in a reading, like this is a current event. And the first time you see it, note it, and they will probably use that again and again for you. So now is the symbol. And he showed me pushing important papers towards her, like insurance papers. And the very next day in the mail, she received papers for his estate to finalize the very next day. What does that show us? And she didn't know what it was at the time. I just had to trust her husband. And that, yeah, I could see, you guys may not be able to see Lynette, but I could see Lynette in the background going like this. They have special vision, right? That higher perspective of the spirit world. Of course, they know what's in the mail and what's on the way to you. I've had those kinds of instances numerous times. So just truly trust and know in your heart that your loved ones are with you. They see what's coming down the lane a few days out. Of course, with humans' free will, things do change, but something like a package that's going to be delivered, or how about the woman that one time the mother across the veil showed me a lily, very clearly, a potted lily, the long green branches or leaves, the white flower. And my client said, no. And I said, no, this is a current event, your mom says. She said, no, I don't have one. And 5 minutes after the reading was over, she emails me. She says, Suzanne, the doorbell rang in the middle of the reading, but I didn't want to interrupt the reading. And when I went out the front door just now, there was a lily on the porch. It had been delivered by a florist in the middle of the reading. So again, there's mom across the veil. Oh, there's a florist. This is going to be a good one. Wait till this unfolds after the reading. You just have to love it. It's wondrous. I like to use the word magical, but it's not magic. It's the way it is. This is truth. So this woman's guides came in this reading, and they said very clearly, I don't always get guides in a reading, but in this case, they said, don't worry about what other people think. Well, that turned out to be very prophetic, because it turns out that she is a very devout Christian, and she had a friend immediately when she was sharing her excitement about this reading tell her he was very afraid for her soul, or words to that effect. And she said it was like somebody kicked me in the stomach. Did I do something wrong? Am I a bad girl? That feeling that we get in our human mode. And then she suddenly remembered her guides had actually said, not in reference to that, but it just came immediately into her mind, no doubt put there by her guides to remind her, don't worry about what anybody says. And it just, she wrote to me and said it buoyed her spirit so much. And she realized that man is on his own path, and this is the path she has decided to go down. And it has brought her so much peace. She received a whole bunch of signs from her husband after that reading, now that she knew for sure he was there, and she could trust the signs that she'd been getting all along, but didn't really know if that was okay. It's totally okay. It's all about love. And imagine how wonderful it is for those across the veil when we acknowledge their signs. I have to speak out. I heard Lynette acknowledge the Spruills who are here. Their son Dakota is across the veil, and there's a young man who gives a lot of signs. I'm going to be sharing his story at the Helping Parents Heal conference in August. And then hopefully after that, I can make all of it public. It just absolutely wondrous ways that young man, in a hilarious way, made his presence known to all of us. A real turn of events. Okay, so speaking of people who see mediumship as bad, I mentioned my wonderful assistant, Valerie. She reached out to me, sent me an email last month or so, and I want to read what she wrote. She said, I love today's podcast. When you were answering the question regarding what to say when people see mediumship as bad, she had an insight. And Valerie said, belief systems need to be defended. What one knows needs no defense. And that is absolutely true. I hope that I give this advice frequently to everybody. When you get an email and somebody accuses you of something, or anybody says anything, as soon as you notice that need in you to defend yourself, just recognize that as your human side. Everybody just wants to be right. Everybody wants others to understand why we say what we say and do what we do. But there are many times when that other person just isn't ready to hear it and won't hear it. And so the more you put up a defense, that's an energetic wall. And hang on, I thought I had muted my phone and I didn't. That's an energetic wall that gives the other person something to push back against. But if you simply dissolve the ego and stand as the light of consciousness, the light of the soul, all of their attacking energy, any dissonant energy will just flow straight through, and it takes away even their need to come at you because they're not getting anything in return. So thank you, Valerie, for putting that in beautiful words. All right. So again, part of this path of living the awakened way is becoming much more aware of when you're in human mode versus spirit mode. And your heart already knows what each of those looks like. Not that the human mode is always going to be bad, but the human mode, when it's integrated with the spirit mode, is going to be much more loving, doesn't worry so much about what other people think. But human only mode, it just stands out by a clenching inside, a wall that puts up, that causes you to put up resistance and not allowing. That's going to result in stress. That's going to result in dis-ease, which can ultimately end up as disease. And certainly if you're trying to connect with loved ones across the veil, anything that's not in resonance with the soul's true nature is going to make connecting more difficult, connecting across the veil. All righty. Different subject, but just beautiful example of how Spirit is at work all the time to help us tune into our soul side. I have a dear friend, I know she's tuned into the webinar right now, but she watched a recent open-eyed channeling video that's on YouTube. Perhaps you saw it the first time that I channeled Sanaya with my eyes open, and Sanaya answered the question about how to deal with family members who are estranged. A really good answer that they gave there, and I'm sure that Bev will put a link to that video if you haven't seen it in the comments on this video. So if you come back, you'll find it that way. But her youngest daughter had been out of contact with her for 3 years, and she watched that channeling and wrote to us to say that she was overjoyed that just before Christmas, that daughter reached out and reestablished contact, and they got to spend Christmas Eve together. And it was just beautiful and showed that, you know, when we don't push an issue, when we trust spirit, when we come from our heart and trust the process and allow people to go down the path that they need to go down, you know, in some cases like this one, it has what we consider a very happy ending. But what's really cool is, let me see, she wrote, and I quote her email, "I no more would have expected this change of circumstances and the significant shift that happened. It felt like she was adrift at sea, yet I've held vigil for her. Sanaya's channeling rang like a guiding bell, tolling in the dense fog." Now, the reason I bring that up is those words right there made me laugh out loud, because the minute I read them in an email, I knew what Brenda, my guide across the veil, had been referring to about an hour and a half earlier when we played the sign game. Every time before I sit to do a reading, I say, "Brenda, am I tuned in? Tell me something Lynette's doing right now." And that day, in that reading, Brenda showed me a big bell tolling and garlands of flowers coming down in a celebratory fashion. I sent that to Lynette, and I love that Lynette will not make something stretch. She said, "I don't know what that is." And I said, "Well, she's celebrating something, and I don't know what the bell is, but I'm just going to have to trust that I am tuned in, because here's a hint how you know it's not your imagination when you talk to spirit. There was no reason for me to have the image of a bell tolling and celebratory garlands of flowers. And now you know, Brenda knew that this friend of ours was going to write me if she hadn't already. I don't remember the timing. And it was in my inbox about using that metaphor of a bell tolling to celebrate her daughter reaching back out after 3 years. So again, another example of the spirit world having the bigger picture. And I can literally hear Brenda right now saying, "Well, of course we do. What do you think?" And they're no longer bound inside the physical body with our limited physical sight. But we are not either. This is the point. We certainly don't have the omnipresent bird's eye view that we have once we get out of these bodies, but using the Bless Me method that I teach, doing the regular sip of the divine, and any tool that allows you to be present and focus will open you up to the ability to connect with higher consciousness and get the bigger picture, which is why I'm sharing these stories with you. All right. I have some friends here in my community who we've been going out to dinner with each other a lot recently, and they're very new to mediumship. You know, it's interesting when people start to get into this, and I said, well, watch the documentary Messages of Hope. Just that'll give you a good introduction. And here's a copy of my book. If they're open to it, I don't ever push this. Like we said earlier, people really, it's their path. Well, they were open, and then they asked for a reading. Now, I know I have this waiting list and I'm still not taking people, but you know, you have to tune into your heart. And of course, there are going to be certain exceptions, like friends that are very close, and they come right out and ask you. So I had the wife come over to the house in person for her first reading, and she was understandably nervous, not quite sure what to expect. And I said, trust me, this is going to be very interesting, fascinating, and maybe even fun. Well, we tuned in, and I tuned into some loved ones across the veil right away. And I won't go into details because it was her personal reading. But at one point I said, and I hope you can tell by now that they're right here. And she had this stunned look on her face. She said, Suzanne, I can see them. I can see them. And even as I say it, I get goosebumps. And I wanted to interrogate her at the moment and say, you mean objectively? Because I can't even see them. But whatever was happening with her, it left no doubt in her mind that they were right there. And then this magical moment, even though she knew it was them, the most wondrous moment for me in that session was when she saw me looking like this, because one of her loved ones across the veil just took this 5-pointed star, like a sheriff's badge star, and he just went like this, and he planted it up in the air, a star, but it was a gold star. And I teach everybody that I teach mediumship to, just to report objectively first what you see. Because if you interpret that, you could go wrong. So if I had said, well, he's saying he's your shining star or something, she might not have gotten it. But in this case, she would have. I just said, look, he just put this star up there and I'm not sure why. And she went, oh, and that is the best thing you can hear in a reading, right? The big gasp. Turns out that person in spirit, from childhood till the day he passed, everybody called him Star. That was his name. So that was one of those moments where it's like, okay, there's another convert. We got another believer. You know, it's beautiful. That's why, you know, we can have readings where we deal with people in deep grief and it's very challenging. We do have readings that don't go well. I just did one today that was a redo from somebody years ago. She said, you had to call my reading off. I really like to try again. I said, sure, let's try again. And it was beautiful today. So who knows why they don't go well? Spirit knows. But at our human side, we don't always know. So please don't ever blame your sitter for their low energy. It could be your low energy. It could have been, it wasn't time. Or there was going to be a more important message when you do it the next time. So we just trust the process. One more little bit of evidence, then we'll move on. I have a special guest I want to bring on here, and she's limited in time. So I was asked to do a reading for a man whose fiance was recently murdered, and she was pregnant. And that's all I knew. I also knew he was desperate to hear from her. So with that, just as I was tuning in, I didn't know where he was located, but as I was just turning on the Zoom meeting, the young woman across the veil came in, and I had a flashing image of her, which is very exciting for me to see. Long dark hair, dark flashing eyes, and I knew in my gut, and that's claircognizance, I knew she was not American. I knew she was a foreigner to her boyfriend, my client, and I knew she spoke with an accent. And I hadn't even connected personally with her yet. And I shared that with him right away. And he said, oh, absolutely. He was actually in the foreign country that she was from during the reading, but I didn't know that until we got started. So really cool that, you know, when you do a reading or you have a reading, the loved ones are just waiting. They're like those guys behind Whoopi Goldberg. Come on, let's get started. Let's go. I want to talk. We've been here waiting all this time. And of course, working with the medium's guides to make sure they're able to communicate quickly, efficiently, and clearly. But what was really interesting was he had a lot of questions about her passing. And it's often challenging when there's, for me anyway, when I feel the pressure that people don't know all the details of their loved one's passing, and they're going to trust the medium to get that from across the veil. And the pieces that I got absolutely fit with the missing pieces in the puzzle that he already had. So that was truly fascinating. And then the connection was so clear that my guides, Sanaya, came in and were channeling a message directly for him. And they said that he would be okay, that his fiance was fine across the veil along with the unborn baby, but that he would actually come out stronger because of this. Don't we all? Hopefully, that's the goal. And then they used the analogy. They showed me a sword, and a sword being forged by the fire. I thought it was an unusual analogy, but the guides, my guides, Sanaya, as they channeled, said, and you will understand this analogy. So when the reading was over, he said, it is a good analogy for me. I run a blog about pirates, and crossed swords are one of my logos. So that's just evidence that comes from the channeling that was very, very validating. I hope that you all have enjoyed that and celebrating with me, and that it also helps to cement how the spirit world works in your mind as well, in your awareness. Let me answer just a couple questions before I bring in our special guest, because I do like to intersperse Q&As in here.
Okay, we have a question from Nikki. What happens if a soul going through their life review wants to hang on to human emotions like anger or resentment? How do their guides handle that?
The guides are saying it is quite unusual for any soul to hang on to human emotions, for you are so surrounded by the love of spirit, by the awareness of your true nature, that all lower vibrations basically melt away. So I have yet to have a soul come through who was angry or even upset. They'll make emotion like we feel what you would understand as sadness, but these are very, very different levels of emotion than we know in human terms. So when they have a life review and see things, there is an equivalent of something like regret. That's a very common one, but the guides are saying right now results in an urge to make amends. And so that urging is within all of us. It's what causes us, leads us to make choices that are in our highest interest. And that's just much more obvious to us when we're across the veil.
Thank you. Harold has a rather practical question here. What is Sanaya's wisdom as to the impact of fluoride may have on the pineal gland? Should it be avoided?
And the guides are saying you have most likely been reading about the calcification of the pineal gland, and this will happen quite naturally as one ages, meaning that things do become a bit more stiff and slow down, but do not rush out and buy toothpaste that is specially formulated for the pineal gland. Work mostly on raising your vibration. That will shake loose any lower vibrations that are getting in the way of your third eye opening to its fullest. Okay. Wow, that's cool. So these are kind of halfway channel dancers today. Interesting. All right. Hey, Bev, a couple of times I'd like you to just point out or let Stephanie ask a few questions tonight. So she definitely gets to jump in with both feet tonight. Okay.
I just had the same thought.
Okay. How about one more from you, Bev, so that we give her a chance to breathe.
Okay.
From
Emma.
Hang on, let me just say that everybody, Bev always uses her intuition to be drawn to the right questions to ask. So it is totally the web in action. So Stephanie, you're going to have to you'll just be pinged by one and say, that's one. I know that's one. Okay.
Just go with it.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, Emma asked about soul groups. What exactly are they? Do they include my family?
Oh, it is your family and very intimate friends who you just feel like a soulmate with a friend, no matter what gender they are. They're the souls who you agree to incarnate and interact with here in physical form. You've gone through lifetime after lifetime with these same souls, and it's why I know the first time I saw Ty's picture, I saw his picture before I met him, and there was just this knowing, this connection, and now of course it's just part of the soul family. So yeah, you signed up for your loved ones. Some of them you might say, what was I thinking? I'm not talking about Ty. I'm talking about, siblings and parents and such, but truly this is how we grow the most. I just recorded this coming weekend's podcast with Rob Schwartz, who wrote Your Soul's Plan and 2 other books about soul planning. So mark your calendars for Sunday at noon Eastern, a really fascinating interview about why we make certain choices before we come into this life. 5 reasons why we have soul planning, how it turns out for us. All right. So speaking of special guests, I hope you saw a recent podcast with Cheryl Page. Cheryl is a scientist, a cancer researcher who uses the scientific method. She came to me for a reading when the love of her life, Scott, died several years ago. And we talked all about that in the podcast. Cheryl, here you are. Welcome back on camera with me again.
Thank you.
You have the same backdrop. I think you have the same scarf on as then. But
I might.
people have really loved the interview. I think we have almost 30,000 views already.
38,000 as of
Oh,
today.
I stand corrected. 1,000. Yeah, that's awesome. The ripple spreading far and wide. I can't watch it without laughing just because your energy is so infectious. You're just so delightful, inquisitive. And in that interview, we talked about how John Denver comes to you and has come to you for a while. You've known him. You used to work with him, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So here I am, as we go now into the subject, can we connect with famous people? The answer is yes, all of us can. In fact, I'm just wrapping up an 8-week course with the Shift Network on soul-to-soul communication, and we did the whole module on communicating with famous people. But Cheryl takes it to a whole other level, and I hope you'll watch that podcast episode. We'll put the link again on the video here because she talks about her method, which is ingenious. But I was in meditation a few days after that podcast aired, and to my surprise, here's John Denver. Now, how did I know it was him? I heard his name, I felt his energy, and I had a fleeting image of him. So even though I don't normally see spirits, I see those I know. I can see their image. So Cheryl, I'm going to bring you on to say more later, but I just want to quickly know, how do you sense him when he's around?
That's a really important question, Suzanne. And so much of my foundation was given to me by you. And so early on, I don't know if you remember this, but I called one day crying because I couldn't delineate. Like, I don't know who's talking to me. And you said, you need to stop crying. And then you said, or not.
Oh, no.
And you said, it's more important that they're talking than who's talking. And that was helpful. And early on, this will sound silly perhaps, but Scott showed up as blue sparklers with my eyes closed and my hemisync on, and John showed up as purple. So it's like they gave me a visual difference until I could start to feel what they felt like. At least I had a visual behind my eyes.
How did you know it was John Denver if you just saw purple lights?
Really good question, because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. But it somehow they must have communicated, because Scott was the first one who showed up. He was definitely blue, and now I have a new color, purple.
But if I could interrupt, you said you felt them. So clearly, I mean, if your love of your life shows up, you would say, oh my God, it's you, Scott.
Yeah.
I know it's you. Yeah. But you just felt and knew and recognized John Denver?
Well, but it's like when you know someone, I think it was that. I knew him and worked with him for many years. So his frequency or the way that he feels. But again, I was a complete neophyte walking through an environment that I didn't know. So I was gleaning as best I could.
Okay, excellent. Well, it's just like me. It was just so fleeting. And I just said, oh, it's John Denver. And I thought, what are you doing here? And he had a message for you. And I thought, well, that's unusual because you have an open line, both of you, back and forth. He visits you often. So everybody, here's what you do. What do? You ask for validation. Even though I knew it, I want to be able to say to Cheryl, I know it was him. So I said, John, I'm going to need some evidence here. Right away. Right away, he showed me that, Cheryl, you had a heating problem in your house, that like a boiler or something was not working right, and that you were using an alternate heat source. Even as I say that, it gives me goosebumps because everybody, again, how do you know it's not your imagination? Where does that come from? Right? It's so random and specific. So then another thing he showed me he is a movie fan. And I thought, well, who isn't a movie fan? We all love movies, right? But then he's eating popcorn, loving the movies, showing me a crackling fire, just this whole feeling of just really loving, sitting back, watching the movies, eating popcorn. So I want to share with everybody, if you don't mind, Cheryl, then I want to go a little deeper in this, what Cheryl wrote back to me. Validation. I am having trouble with my boiler, and I have been using an Eden Pure space heater because my room is so cold. Sorry to hear that, Cheryl, but really happy to hear that. And then this is the part that cracked me up about the movie thing. I always invite my boyfriend, Scott, in spirit, and JD, she calls John Denver JD, to watch movies with me. I gotta love that. So all of you with your kids across the veil, your spouses, your parents across the veil, invite them to sit there with you. She says, it's sort of our thing, LOL. I watched a movie last night and went back and forth about whether or not to eat popcorn. So I know that was just his way of saying, yeah, I'm there with you and I'm watching with you. And was it you in that podcast that explained about how we can be in two different realities, like sitting on a couch watching a movie together? Was that you or somebody else?
Somebody else, I think.
Okay, so let me just share that really quickly, everybody. How can we be in the same space watching a movie with someone and not know they're here? Our loved one's dimension interpenetrates our own. The spirit world is right here, but like a different channel. So an analogy that's very helpful is, right now, you could have somebody that you love sitting beside you on the couch in physical form, and you're not interacting with each other. One person might be reading, the other one's reading their iPad. And so you're present, but not interacting. Then all of a sudden you turn towards each other and you start talking. It's like that with the spirit world across the veil. They're right here, but we don't have to make our presence known and interact all the time. But when they want to make their presence known, they do so, like dropping in us in a way that we can't miss. I was in meditation, so I was very open to having that drop in. But the most important thing is, why do our loved ones drop in? They have a message. So, I say, okay, John, you've given me this validation that I trust Cheryl will be able to validate. Why are you here? And he gave the message, but here's what Cheryl wrote about that. You could not know how specific and intimate and important this message is for me. It is nuanced and powerfully emphasizes for me his message to me over the past few months. For the sake of brevity, I'm not going to go into the weeds with all he's been saying, but suffice to say, you have delivered his message beautifully. It's crystal clear, evidential in ways that are profound and significant between me and John Denver. Yay. So Cheryl, you tell me, you have this open connection. Is, in your opinion, well, I think I know why, but I'd like to hear your opinion. Why would he come to me like that? Oh, the guys just said, look what you're sharing right now for the greater good. For you, why would he come through me instead of just
Well, and I know that we talked about a number, there's several times during the last 6.5 years, you may not even remember where you and I have talked about John, and he sent you a song, you were looking for a sign, and then the sign was in the song. And so there's been some, I think you are a familiar to him. And yet the part of the message that was so important is in trying to write this book, I've really been struggling about how to write it in a meaningful way. And if I have the message in my own head, even if I know it's from him, I still doubt it. But if it comes from external to me, then I can sort of put weight in it in a different way. And you, of all people, it's like you step in with there's a weightedness in the way that you give the gift. And I think he chose the messenger very specifically because you would understand to not mess with what he was trying to say. You delivered it perfectly.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that. But I think the most important thing of what you said there is that so many times we humans and our humanness doubt ourselves, and we love to get validation. And I can't tell you, I think I said, yes, you can. 99% of the people who want psychic information and guidance about themselves already know what they want and what they need. They want somebody outside of them to validate it. Yeah. So everybody, learn to trust your gut, learn to trust yourself and your own guides, and have fun working with psychics and mediums. But yeah. So Cheryl, you reminded me when I asked you to come on and just share, because I just love being in your energy, that John Denver came through in that very first reading.
Yes. And I knew it immediately. I shared it with you today just as a reminder, because you had not recalled that had happened. But the almost the very first thing that came out of your mouth was boulders. Mm-hmm. And you could say that to 100 other people, 1,000 other people, they wouldn't know what you were talking about. But as soon as you said it, I knew that it was him.
And the name with the J, and then you sent me a picture. This man here who's showing me boulders is a name with the J, and you would know that he was close to you. It's not, see, she worked with him. So it's not like Frank Sinatra drops in and she's not expecting that, but it would be like, oh my gosh, it's John or JD in your case. What were the boulders? Why was that significant?
There's a sanctuary that was placed after John passed. It's the John Denver Sanctuary in Aspen. And the way that the sanctuary is structured is boulders as tall as me with his songs and quotes by him. So those are basically, his tombstone is in that sanctuary. And so that's how we reference there's John's tombstones. Very
cool. Well, I hope everybody will check out that. We'll get it up to now 39,000 views if you haven't seen it already. We'll get to 40 and beyond, because it's just wondrous. And your enthusiasm, your reverence for the spirit world is infectious. The scientific way in which you approach it is beautiful. And there's a lot of teaching in that one podcast that's fantastic. Any advice you want to give everybody about connecting with famous people as well as their own loved ones?
I think I would like to just say what Suzanne said, which is trust the process. And to me, when, my left brain science girl didn't know how to move forward, I kept bumping up against my own doubt or whatever. And so there's a simple phrase that I use when I bump up against the doubt, and that is, what if? What if it's real? What if it's not? What if I'm crazy? What if I'm not? But what if? What if it's him and I'm not giving him the benefit of the doubt? And you gave me the most amazing gift. You said to me that first day, you said, there's 3 things that you can say when you get a sign. You said, thank you. And the more enthusiastic, the better. That's the best one. You said, the second one is, Scott, is that you? Because you said, if you ask the question, you acknowledge the possibility. And that was very helpful. And then the third one you said is the spiritual equivalent of slamming the door in their face, which is, isn't that a coincidence?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So many people do that. They chalk it up to coincidence when it's really the loved one. So that's the things you don't want to do. You don't want to say, oh, that was just a coincidence. Because what if, like you said, Cheryl, what if it is then?
Exactly. And thank you for the message from JD. I so needed to hear it. And it was a very timely gift.
Well, I'm just the messenger, and I'm glad you didn't have to shoot me.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks for coming on, Cheryl. We love you. Bye-bye.
Love you too.
Wasn't that great, everybody? Oh, I hope you'll check out that one. Excellent. All righty. Let's answer a couple questions and then move on.
Okay, so I'll take a few this time. All right, we have one from Nancy, which is just interesting to me because songs pop into my head all the time. But does spirit sometimes communicate with us through songs? And sometimes songs just pop into my head that pertain to a question I have, or even just the love I'm feeling for spirit.
Oh, it's such a common way for spirit to get our attention. I see this all the time in readings when a loved one will actually tell me a specific song and my client just gasps because that's their song. But think how perfect this is. If you're in the higher realms, you have the higher perspective. You don't just see, you're immersed in our reality, like you're sitting on the couch next to your loved one in physical form. You know what's coming up on the radio next. You don't put it there, you know, because it's a shared reality. Or you hear what's playing now and you snag your loved one, like, listen now. It's just what makes you tune into that song, and you tune in and you may not know the song, but the lyrics are so meaningful in that instant. That is economy of energy right there. The spirit world has just saved trying to get a message through. It's just like, listen, their thoughts sound like your own. Well, you may say, what made me listen to that just then? It's because spirit, your loved one, snagged your attention. It's one shared mind that we all have. So they will use what's out here. I have a beautiful example of that. Should I share it now? Yes. All right. Many of you know that Beth Passakarnis, Wolf, in my book, Wolf's Message, his stepmother, Beth, has been going through a big challenge with a very aggressive form of leukemia. Am I right? Yeah. I'm a little spacey right now. So leukemia. And I'll tell you, the healing energy this community has been sending her, it has absolutely made a difference. We'll have a chance to do some more of that for her and anybody else a little later in the evening. But she has felt a noticeable difference when we send the healing energy. She just last week had a bone marrow transplant. She found a donor with 100% match to hers. They hoped to harvest 5,000 good cells, and 5 million good cells, and they got 10 million. And they got the good news that it has started a new verb for me, engrafting. And she was actually discharged from the hospital yesterday and is continuing to recover. But the reason I'm especially sharing this as we talk about songs is because her husband, Mike, Wolf's dad, was driving from their home to the hospital the day or 2 days before this bone marrow transplant. They took her white blood cell count down to 0. She would need all new white blood cells from scratch with this transplant. A song that Mike noticed started playing after Wolf, his son, passed was a song, I think, by Peter Gabriel. Something Hill. Starts with an S. I can't remember the name. I'd never even heard this song. But when it comes on at specifically important times, significant times for Mike. And he notices it because Wolf is snagging him. So there he is driving to the hospital. That Salisbury Hill. Thank you, guys. That song came on the radio on his car screen. Nice readout screen. He looked down and for the first time ever saw the album name that song came from. You ready? The album name is New Blood. God, that has got to be like the number one piece of evidence tonight that I share with you. That is just the biggest wow. So we're all rooting for you, Beth. Okay, just keep getting stronger. And thank you all for the healing energy you've sent her way. All righty. So how about one more there, Steph?
Okay, now this is a one-liner, but I think many people have this. What is the difference between Holy Spirit and angels?
Huh?
What is the difference?
Okay. Okay, there's the lip twitch from the guides. We could answer this question in religious terms that you would understand, but this would be splitting hairs. The Holy Spirit is another word for the life force that flows through all of you. It is the one and only Spirit. It is the voice that speaks to you from the stillness within. Angels are a manifestation of this Holy Spirit, as are you. Okay?
That is profound. Wonderful.
Nice. Okay. Thank you very much. All right, moving on. So, connecting with angels, connecting with guides, connecting with famous people across the veil and our loved ones. I'm always trying to find new ways of explaining how these connections are possible. And we're already talking all around it and directly at it tonight. And it's because we all are part of this one divine light of consciousness. That's an analogy, right? But as I go like that, it's a flow. It's not static, it's dynamic. We are changing moment by moment. Thoughts are arising moment by moment. Everything is a flow of consciousness, of awareness. So I have a new analogy that Spirit gave me in the last month that I shared in my live classes in Savannah last month, and people really loved it. I'm still using it myself to wrap my head around how we can embody more of this life force, which you're getting a full transmission of it this evening. If you have trouble sleeping, don't blame me, blame Spirit, okay? So the analogy is go back to grade school science, or maybe high school science. I don't know what grade we learned this in. The water cycle. Think about how that is an ongoing, unending flow. We'll start with water evaporating and forming clouds. It's all H2O. The clouds eventually become so full, what happens? It comes down in the form of rain. It's still H2O. It's the same stuff, H2O. Say it lands on the top of a mountain where it's really cold because it's so high and it becomes ice. It's still the same stuff. Like consciousness is consciousness, H2O is H2O. We're using water as an analogy for consciousness, your basic essence. So as this ice melts, it now becomes a flow of water down the mountain. When it comes to a flat area, it's going to pool into a large area. It's still the same stuff, but now in a pattern that we recognize as, say, a lake. Then it's going to come to an edge and it's going to flow over in the form of a waterfall. And then it might pool again and make more waterfalls. In about 2 weeks, Ty and I are going to South America for a bucket list item. I want to take Ty to my favorite place on earth. It's called Iguazu Falls. It's right where Argentina, Brazil, and Paraguay come together with over 100 waterfalls in one place. And you walk all amongst the waterfalls at the bottom, the middle, over top of them. Waterfalls are my thing, but it's perfect for this analogy. I credit Joel Goldsmith for this part of it. Think of Niagara Falls. We give it a name, Niagara Falls. But where does Niagara Falls begin exactly? There's no one place. It actually flows from Lake Erie above it, and then it flows farther down and becomes a river to which we give a name. And then, of course, the river flows out to the ocean and evaporates, and there's our whole cycle, the flow. We give names to the flow, even though it's inseparable from the whole infinite, ongoing, never-ending cycle of the same stuff. We give you a name, and you think you're separate, but you are a flow of the life force. It is flowing through you from above. It flows down. At some point, we'll return to ashes, but this flow that enlivens you continues, becomes wispy for a while, then incarnates again. I love the waterfall image We can't be separated from the higher realms or the lower realms, but for a while we named this portion, this vertical portion for us in human form, a name, but it's part of the flow. Here's the thing. Sometimes those waterfalls are little, they dry up like a trickle. Other times, go back at certain times of the year. We're going in the summer to Iguazu Falls, so it should be roaring, right? It's going to be beautiful, I hope. Sometimes in the summer, they're not so roaring. I don't know. I'm hoping for the best. But in any case, our goal is to embody as much of this flow as possible. I have a hemisync recording. Cheryl briefly mentioned she listens to my hemisync recordings. One of them is called Building the Power. And that is all about becoming this vessel for the life force to flow through ever more powerfully. Over the more than a dozen years that I've been channeling Sanaya, I have built up my ability to carry, to bear, to express more of their higher energy. And that's become evident in the greater fluency when they speak through me. Bev was present in Florida when I first started in the first years of channeling, and she's nodding her head now. And it would come through stilted in bits and pieces, and there'd be pauses. Now there are times when I can barely keep up with the flow. And that's just, and that comes from learning how to and building up the ability to funnel more of that. Love is the highest vibration. The more you act as in awareness of being the presence of love, the greater amount of that loving energy you can channel. So you channel all the time. I channel my guides, but you, whether you're trained in it or not, are channeling the Holy Spirit, right? You are the voice for that. Don't think in Catholic terms. I wasn't raised Catholic. I'm talking about this holy, meaning deserving of awe and reverence, energy that is infinitely intelligent and is inspiring you as it flows through you to write, to create art, to create movies, to create photographs, songs, as the life force inspires you, and you inspire others as it flows through you. So picture that waterfall, and at any moment now in the future, you can say, am I embodying as much of the life force as possible? You're the one who turns up your own flow. You do that with your free will, your choices, and how much love you are expressing. I just love that. Every day, the daily Awakened Way messages go out to our app. We're about 40,000 downloads of that so far. And the Daily Way messages send that out. And it goes, I post it in the back end of my website. It goes out to the world on what's called an RSS feed. Some of you techies have heard that term before. It's just some technical term where if you post something in a website, it automatically goes out to the world. RSS feed. Well, I realize when we're in human mode with the life force just a trickle, that's an RSS, restricted sense of self, right? We don't want to be in the restricted sense of self. We want to send our energy out to the world full force. The spacious sense of self is the definition of the soul. So allow that lake of higher energy that's ready to pour through you to pour through as fully as it can. And I truly trust that there are higher beings above us metaphorically, who every once in a while take some boulders and divert the flow of the life force, allowing more or less to flow. So that's another, just a little twist on that analogy. Ponder that in the coming days. Use that analogy and see how that works for you. I hope you like that. Okay, cool. All righty. How about a question just to make a break from that?
Okay, so Bev tells me to take this one.
The
All
only
right.
thing is, Stephanie, Bev has like years of knowing which questions I've answered before or which ones you'll catch on.
All right, this one's interesting. This is from Audra Lee. When someone in our circle is going through a difficult time and we just aren't able to get through to them on our human level, can we ask to speak to their guides for the best way to guide this loved one through the challenge?
Absolutely. Use guides frequently. All those unemployed angels and your guides. Unemployed angels was Lorna Burns' term for the many helpers who are waiting to be used. Your guides have the bigger picture. Other people's guides have the bigger picture. So why wouldn't you connect with those who hear you very clearly and say, hey, how about talking to their guides and put some thoughts in, have them put thoughts in their head? I used this once in a workshop with somebody who was estranged from a loved one. And they said to their guides, please have my daughter reconcile with me. Ask her guide to tell her to reconcile. And the very next day, her daughter reached out and said, Mom, I think we need to reconcile. Use the exact words. Now, I will tell you, we have an estrangement situation in our family. I have been trying this method for years, and it's not working. So it's a tool. There is often a bigger picture that we don't see from this level. And because of other humans' free will trumps a guide's help. That's a very important point, okay? But definitely use the guides. All right, we'll just move on after that one, see what's left. Okay. We all come here, especially validated by Rob Schwartz in this upcoming podcast about soul planning, to work on specific issues. Rob does a workshop where you identify your issues, but I can tell you, I know what some of mine are off the bat, and I'll bet you know what yours are, because they keep coming up over and over with many opportunities. People will push your buttons repeatedly because at the soul level, you are trying to master that. So I know that one of my life lessons is dealing with other people's anger. I did not do it well because I chose at the soul level parents who didn't allow us as kids to be angry or to express anger. So then I chose an ex-husband now who had a lot of anger issues. That was very interesting. So over the years, I've gotten much better at dealing with people's anger, but in the past, I would just want to just run away from it instead of feeling it or dealing with it. I know patience is another one of mine. What is yours, do you think? I'm just asking all of you, and I bet you know what it is. You don't have to write it in the chat. Just getting you to really feel it and acknowledge it and say, whoa, you mean I might have asked for this? Yes, in a perverse way. But recently at a dinner party, I had an occasion to have some insights about anger. We live in a very divided world right now, and there's a lot of anger going around. So this is something that all of us have to deal with frequently. And I realized that we can let the lower vibrations flow through us, but to a point. And I was shown it's like music. If you're at a concert and the musicians are out of tune, you're going to notice it. There's something innately in us that says, that music is discordant. Or maybe there's loud, heavy metal music and you're not into that. And at first you're like, ooh, but you can bear with that to a point because you know it's going to end. But when that song ends and another one comes on and then another one comes on, there comes a point when, okay, we can only let it flow so long. So that was a really interesting observation for me, that we don't have to put up with something longer than we need to. So then I suddenly got to the point at this dinner party where I thought, I need to say something to honor the self. And I was the only one that wasn't participating in the conversation. I was observing, trying to say, isn't this interesting? Which will always take you to neutral. And I suddenly said, you know, everybody, I just can't sit here and point out what's wrong with everybody else anymore. And they all looked at me. They hadn't realized that it just gets into this little spinning up thing that picks up its own energy like a storm, right? Becomes magnetic. And all of a sudden, just that one nice little non-defensive, non-confrontational thing shifted the whole energy, and we went back to more of a party mode. So I hope that just gives you all some encouragement that, you know, we don't have to become doormats. We don't have to put up with other kinds of energy. To a point, it's a beautiful test, but be true to your higher self as often as you can. Along the same lines, I saw an email that was going around recently. It said, the subject line, want to feel your blood boil? Watch this video. And I looked at that and I said, no, I don't want to feel my blood boil. Delete. See, people know what gets to the people side of us, the human side. And sometimes it feels good to let your blood boil, but it's not good for the soul. It's part of the opposites here are part of the spectrum of being human, but we don't have to go along with the crowd. So blood boiling is dissonance to the soul. It's like heavy metal rock music in church. Okay, so be aware. Blood boiling in the terms of righteous anger can be addictive because perversely it feels good to the human side. So just a little food for thought there. Okay, let's see. Oh, this is a good one. I tried to put my notes on the screen so I wouldn't be looking down. It just didn't work. I'm old-fashioned, so bear with me. Speaking out, pointing out disparities between each other. You know, we're not all supposed to think alike. It's part of the beautiful challenge that we come here as souls. We learn from appreciating each other's differences, but that's the thing, appreciating them, not pointing them out as wrong, appreciating them. But in this case, this was interesting because I was doing a reading for a client and her guides came in and were telling her all kinds of ways she could be dealing with a family issue. And I found it really interesting because they were pointing out some pretty touchy things in my client's behavior. You are aware that you are digging your heels in, and you are aware that you would be much better served by doing this. Now, Suzanne, was not aware of any of this. It was really interesting for me to be the voice, not being harmful. My number one rule as a medium is do no harm, but just to point out that she might want to take notice that a better way to deal with her family issue that they knew all about, the guides nailed it, was this, and this. And it was so funny to watch my client squirm and go like this. And when the guides finally stopped speaking, she says, you know, the whole time you were speaking, I wanted to be like that buzzer on a game show and go, she said, I wanted to say, no, that's wrong. But all the reasons you were wrong were absolutely right. And I just found it so beautiful that she didn't say, or you were wrong. She listened. She didn't like it, but because she listened, she was able to take it on board, which is beautiful. So my teaching point here is there is a flying insect here that you can't see, but it's bombarding me in the face. I don't think it's a spirit thing. It's a bug. Anyway, what if we paused when others are talking to us and just let what people have to say be heard, and notice, are we immediately saying, you're wrong? I have caught myself repeatedly in the last few weeks wanting to point out something in Thai that I feel could be done better, and noticing I doggone it do the exact same thing in my own way. And boy, if we just pause all the time, we'd see that's why many times these things bug us so much, because we need to notice it in ourselves first. If we pause instead of going, you're wrong. That was so funny. I wanted so badly to make a clip of that and share it publicly, but it was so personal for her, I couldn't do it. Anyway, okay. How about a couple questions? And then I have some really cool stories to share with you. Oh, wait. Before we do a question, well, you can find one, Bev, but I talked about noticing when something is a sign. Oh, it was a setup. The bug just now, and I said, oh, that wasn't a thing from Spirit. I looked down at my notes. It's the very next thing I was going to talk about. You know, we can say, oh, I saw a butterfly. It was my stepdaughter, Susan, because butterflies are her things. But there is a difference between a true sign and a simple natural occurrence. Susan sent me butterflies. If you've watched the video, Messages of Hope, you know about the butterfly that came out of nowhere when I was asking for her to make her presence known, flew all the way around me, bounced into my heart, then goes straight down a trail 50 yards to her dad, Susan's dad, not the butterfly's dad. The butterfly was a messenger. It wasn't Susan. Flew all the way around him and bounced into his heart before flying off. That's very different than, oh, I just happened to see a butterfly and then I thought of Susan. First of all, many times you're already thinking of your loved one and then something catches you in an unusual way and you know in your heart it's a message. That's how you know it's a true sign. So I bring this up because, first of all, that bug was just a random little, I don't know what it was, but it had no spiritual significance whatsoever. So I'm not going to say it's a sign. Bev, you may remember when I was teaching a class in Plymouth and getting ready to meditate, and the lights kept going down and back up. Remember that? And everybody's like, ooh, it's a spirit thing. And I'm tuning in and I'm saying, I'm not sure about that. Bev would hit the lights again and the lights would come back up and everybody's going, oh, I know it's a spirit thing. And I said, Bev, go check on that, would you? And she went down, and it's because when we turned the lights off in the room, they went off in the whole hallway for the hotel. And the hotel would, every time Bev would turn the lights off, they would turn them back up. So the timing was interesting, but tuning in, it just was not a spirit thing. So I bring this up because it's a great teaching point. And what triggered it was an email from a member of this Awake and Wake community recently. She sent me a photo. She said, Suzanne, I was out on a hike and I came across this bench that's a memorial to somebody because there was a little sign with their name on the bench. She said, look at this picture I took of it. I was thinking of my daughter. Do you think that this is the spirit of my daughter? Or do you think it was the person whose name is on the bench? And I looked at it and you could see this electric light running all the way around, perfectly around the edges of the bench. Now you can go on YouTube and see my Moment of Truth video about orbs. There's something about orbs that absolutely you can tell when that's a spirit visit versus a refraction or reflection or a dust mote. You can tell when there are certain smears of light, and when they do unusual things, that's a spirit thing versus something that got on the lens. In this case, I looked at that, I tuned into my heart, and I thought, oh, I have to be a party pooper again. I find it so important to let everybody know we can't ascribe everything to spirit because it lessens the actual spirit visits. So I said to her, I'm not sure how this happened, but I know this is some electronic technical thing probably done by your smartphone. Sorry about that. Well, she wrote back to me. She said, my son works for Apple. I checked with him. It's an iPhone thing. Darn it. But the cool thing is, 2 days later, she wrote back. She said, Suzanne, I walked into my bedroom and the TV went on by itself. And I said, now that's a sign, and that's your daughter across the veil, because those things just don't happen. And that happened to us within a week of Susan's passing. So yeah, messing with electronics is a good one, especially when you hear stories of things like radios that come on and they don't even have batteries in them, right? These are NOEs, no other explanation moments. Okay. Let's see. All right, I'm not going to do a question now because I have 2 rather lengthy stories that I promised to share with you. I sent out 2 emails about tonight. One was we talk about talking to famous people across the veil. The other one was this email I received from a member of our community with the subject line, the story how Suzanne got me pregnant. Well, if you want to know how to get somebody's attention, that's a good one. It definitely got me to open that one. Actually, it went to Valerie first, and she knew to forward that one to me. Thank you, Valerie. Good job with that one. So I want to tell you that the writer of this email is Rachel. I'm not going to bring her on camera, but she's here tonight. So Rachel, thank you for allowing me to share this story. And it was a long one. I'm going to give you the abbreviated version, but I share it with you tonight, not only because it's fun, but it shows you what's possible for all of us. And again, helps us celebrate how spirit works in our lives. This one will touch your heart for sure. Rachel began her email with the very challenging story about how her 10-year-old daughter, Kennedy, passed from cancer at 10 years old. And of course, that was devastating for her family. She and her husband had a couple of very good readings with mediums, and that helped her, but she thought it was impossible for her to connect herself with her daughter, Kennedy. And this is my goal as a teacher. I love to create mediums. Is that the right word? Not really. You're already a medium if you're meant to be one, but help you bring that gift to the forefront. But I also love to let all of you know we can all connect with spirit because we're souls right here, right now. So at this point, Rachel didn't realize that. They were dependent on mediums to show them that Kennedy still exists. And like she said, she had some good readings, but thought she couldn't do that for herself because she wasn't born with the gift. And I can do the buzzer sound right now on that one. So she has a friend named Julie. And Julie knew she enjoyed a good reading and said, hey, there's a medium coming to a city near us. I'll leave that confidential. Let's go watch. So they attended, and it was very interesting. Many mediums have different styles, and I can definitely understand what Rachel meant when she said she just didn't resonate with the medium style because the medium was cracking jokes, was being, showy, and she was still hurting so badly that she just left there with a bad taste in her mouth. At first, the first time I, still hurting from Susan's passing, went to one of those demonstrations, and the medium was really a very funny person. Ooh, it didn't sit well with me at all either. Since then, I've come to know and be friends with several mediums who have that style. And I see that there's definitely a time when that's helpful. And it helps bring some levity when it's greatly needed. So we honor all places that people are. But in this story, where Rachel was at the time, it didn't sit well with her. So the next time Julie reached out to Rachel, the one that took her to see that medium, Julie told Rachel, you have to check out this medium named Suzanne Giesemann. I think she told her she's the real deal. So I was very happy to read that in this email. But Rachel thought, no, I've had it with mediums. Well, imagine her surprise and mine to read in this email when suddenly Rachel gets a request that Suzanne Giesemann wants to friend her on Instagram. And I'm thinking, I don't do that as I'm reading the email. But this is one of those spirit things, right? Here, she's just been introduced to my name by her friend Julie, and she gets this request on Instagram. Suzanne Giesemann, friend requested you. She thought, wow, Suzanne's team must have nudged her to look me up. We're probably meant to be best friends, she thought. She says, it was at that moment I looked more closely and realized Giesemann could not be spelled with 3 N's. It was a fake account, and we were not about to become besties. I just love, Rachel, the way you wrote this email. So she still took it as a sign, though, that she was supposed to check me out. So she did, and first thing she noticed was Wolf's message. So she read Wolf's message and started getting a lot of signs from that. But what she was absolutely shocked about in Wolf's message was, I was not what we consider a born medium. She said, what? You mean you don't have to be born with this ability? And everybody, if you're new to me, absolutely not. I mean, my stepdaughter died when I was 47. I didn't even know there was a spirit world. I didn't trust it, didn't believe in spirit guides, and look at us now. So, yeah. So that gave her hope, right? And then as she's contemplating all of this, the lights in her chandelier start flickering on and off. What did we say about signs and lights? The timing of it, the knowing in your heart. She says, we've been in this house for 6 years, and that had never happened before. So she said, I dove in head first, read more books, participated in these monthly connections, and signed up for online training. She says, I was hooked. She started watching the videos, but she wanted to learn from me in person. She received a beautiful confirmation from her daughter, Kennedy, that she was being guided in that, because suddenly she found out that there was a course in person with me that she hadn't seen 1 hour earlier. And her friend Julie said, let's go. So they came 2 years ago to Savannah, Georgia, to take one of my classes in personal mediumship, where we teach anybody to connect. And she said, you probably don't remember, I was newly pregnant, and I announced it to the class after she felt the baby moving. I think it was the first time during meditation in that class. It was a truly beautiful moment. So she says, but back to me being pregnant, I skipped over how you got me pregnant, didn't I? So hopefully y'all are wondering, as I was at this point as well. She said, after their 2 daughters were born, she had Kennedy and another daughter, I always felt we were supposed to have one more child. Felt it even before Kennedy passed. She just felt she was supposed to have one more. But now she was 40 years old and decided not to pursue infertility treatment. But she couldn't shake the feeling she was supposed to have not just a child, but a boy. She knew it was going to be a boy. And she said, I had taught her to meditate regularly. So she began, and this is what it takes, a discipline, a commitment to expanding our consciousness, to increasing that flow, right? She began meditating and concentrating with her whole team of guides. They guided her to her own way of working with spirit, which I love, because I can teach methods and tools, but she was given tools and modalities by her own team and began healing her grief, and focusing on the fact that she truly felt she was supposed to have a boy, even though doctors had told her, you will not conceive. That's the key point right here. Several told her it would be impossible to get pregnant without medical intervention. So as she's meditating, she began to actually see this little boy in spirit. He was in multiple meditations and dreams. Even in one meditation, she felt him moving in her stomach, and she wasn't even pregnant yet. She said, this little guy was everywhere, and I knew in my heart he was meant to join our family. 1 month after 2 separate doctors told me it would be impossible, I received a message from my daughter. Now, this is the woman who didn't know, I got goosebumps, didn't know it was possible for us to connect personally with our own loved ones. I'm looking at Bev and Stephanie, I just hope your connection with your own daughter and your stepson opens up this beautifully as well. But she received a personal message from her daughter, "Mommy, take a test." She took a pregnancy test. It was positive. And she said, her daughter said, "Mommy, wait to tell Daddy until tomorrow, my birthday." Oh my gosh. So she did. She wanted it to be a gift from her daughter. She says, "So now you see, if I hadn't learned to connect with my daughter and my team, I would not have been able to heal my mind, body, and spirit enough to conceive a baby." And she probably would have listened to the doctors, right? On November 9th, 2022, after 6 years of infertility issues, at 41 years old, I gave birth to a healthy baby boy. And his name is Salem Lakin, or it could be Lakin. I haven't communicated auditorily with her. Salem means peace and complete. Lakin or Lakin is the last letters of my daughter Mila and the first letters of Kennedy. Since we know both of his big sisters will guide him through life, it felt just right. Isn't that beautiful to know that she was the one that helped make that possible, although clearly Salem chose them years ago. Isn't that beautiful? Absolutely gorgeous. I can't thank you enough for opening my eyes and souls to another level of magic and miracles I didn't know existed. I realize now I am living the exact miracle I prayed for. See, we're all co-creators with our soul family. I will be forever grateful that Suzanne Giesemann with 3 N's friend requested me on Instagram. Now, here's a great follow-up. My friend Julie and I have both been talking about emailing you a thank you since we got back 2 years ago from your training. I was nudged to email you last Sunday. I shot Julie a quick text letting her know I was finally emailing you. Her response, "No way, I'm finishing up my email to Suzanne right now." 2 years, the exact same time. Do you see the web of connections? So in my email to invite all of you to tonight, I said we would also have a lesson in not judging others. That is Julie's gift to us tonight. So I'm going to share her somewhat lengthy, but equally beautiful email with a lesson for all of us, okay? So this is from Julie, and she wants me to use her last name, Julie Hoffman, because I want to honor her honesty and her courage and her growth. That's why we're here. She wasn't proud of the way she acted in the past in a judging situation, but you'll see why she and how she has grown as a result of this. So she says, "I've contemplated writing this for some time. I decided to share it after more than one meditation and several journal entries told me to get on it." So right away, we have another woman who is meditating regularly, hearing that inner voice and acting on it. I hope you all are taking notes if you're not already doing this. Okay, so she says, "I'm certainly not proud of myself, which has added a delay to sharing this universal lesson, but I feel it's a very powerful one. In late August, while cleaning my house, I had an image in my mind of a woman I hadn't seen in years. And she told me about how she would see this woman when she dropped her daughter off at school. I believe it, yeah, elementary school. So her daughter is 17 now, or at least she was when this happened. But the image of this woman popped in her mind, and it was someone she hadn't seen since her daughter was in elementary school. She would drop her daughter off, and she would notice this woman who was always putting her cigarettes out on the school grounds. Judgment number one, like, oh, look at her. She said she always looked like she just got out of bed. And I remember my heart ached a bit for her kids. I was sure they were embarrassed for their mom. So that's the way she remembered her. That's the image of the woman that showed up. But for 3 days, she showed up in my mind's eye. This is how spirit works, everybody. So why does something keep popping up in your memory? And you can get people to reach out to you, by thinking of them very clearly, because you will pop up in their minds like that. Whether somebody's across the veil or here, that consciousness is flowing between you if you've ever been entangled. Even though she had never talked with this woman, they were part of the same field of energy of parents of kids at this elementary school. So here's that image years later, 3 times in a row. There's a message there. Around the same time that she was having the images of this woman who she hadn't seen in years, her husband took their youngest daughter, now age 17, to get coffee at Starbucks, located inside a Safeway shopping center. Her husband waited in the car for their daughter. On the way home, their daughter told them about a man that was acting very creepy in the Starbucks. He offered to buy their daughter coffee, and she said yes, but then he kind of sidled up next to her, and she said it creeped her out, in her words. He stood very close, followed her to the pickup area, and again made her extremely uncomfortable. She said she was actually scared. And unfortunately, don't we live in a world where that could turn out to be something dangerous? She said a stranger noticed the situation as it was unfolding, approached her daughter and said, "Dad's waiting for us in the car. We have to go now." And walked with her out of the grocery store all the way to her car. How perfect is that? That some woman saw what was happening and pretended to be her mom and escorted her all the way to the car. Gives me goosebumps, doesn't it to you? She said, "My daughter caught on quickly. They walked out of Safeway together. She thanked her and let her know how appreciated she was. I clearly remember overhearing my daughter and husband talking about it when they got home, and I really wished I could have thanked her personally. A month later, it's homecoming weekend. My daughter isn't feeling 100%. After we confirmed it's not COVID, we made a run to Safeway to get her cold medicine. We're never there at that time of day. We were literally running so she wouldn't be late for school. As we were leaving, I saw the woman that kept coming into mind's eye the month before, who she hasn't seen in years. I instantly thought it was an intuitive thing. She entered my field because I was going to see her in the future. I'm sure it's very clear where this is going. You guys have probably figured it out, haven't you? She approached my daughter as we were leaving and said, "Did that man ever bother you again?" It stopped me dead in my tracks. I said, "Was that you?" She was really shook by that experience. I'm so grateful you helped her. This is the woman she looked down upon years ago, the woman who escorted her daughter out and may have saved her from a real tragedy. Her response will forever be with me. It was me. Us mama bears have to stick together, don't we? She says, I judged this woman for years, and the universe showed me and taught me so much in a moment. In a moment, I felt so connected to her, mother to mother. And this is the thing. We're all connected to each other. I'm seeing right now this image I was shown by my guides of one tree, like the tree of life. And all of us are leaves on the same tree. And some may be brown and some are still green and some are orange. But we're all part of the same source, right? The same consciousness. She said, I pause now. I pause often. Spirit taught me such a lesson in a way that I truly have become aware of judgment when I'm judging, when someone else is. I feel incredibly blessed to have been shown this lesson, and it feels like it needs to be shared in hopes to create more pauses in the human side while we're still on earth, doing the very best we can. And isn't that a very important point? We are all doing the best we can. And we do human things, and it is in the human nature to judge. It's part of the wiring of the body to look for the negative. But when you live the awakened way and realize you're not only human and we are part of one big web, you notice the human way and you say, there is a better way. And the better way is, I might not resonate with the way that person looks, with what they're doing, but we come from the same source. If I send them love to their soul, maybe that will help them. If they need healing, maybe that will help them. So this is what the Awakened Way is all about. It's making that shift in identity from only human, the RSS feed, the restricted sense of self, to the spacious sense of self that allows, that flows, that doesn't offer resistance, that acknowledges less than optimum behavior and expressions of the self, but it's still the one self. Wow. Julie, thank you so much for sharing that with us. She's watching tonight as well. And Rachel, I love that you two found each other and have helped each other. What's really cool, and I'll end this whole section with this, is Julie, right in the midst of all of this, pushed the inspire button on the Awakened Way app. I hope you all who have the app use that button every once in a while to say, what message do I need to hear right now? And I'm going to read to you Sanaya's words that popped up at just this time. In the eyes of spirit, there is no best. There is not better. There is no worse. All are simply precious expressions of the God force. If there is no judgment, and all of you know one who did not judge others, then why do you judge? It is the nature of the human being. It is learned behavior. Can you unlearn it? Most certainly, but not without effort. The rewards are many and great. We do warn you that you may find yourself alone in this behavior, quite often, of not judging. But you need not voice your new beliefs aloud. Practice them until they are part of you, and that is all the reward you will need. No better, no best. Level the playing field, and all are winners. What a message to come up when you're sharing with the world a lesson in judgment. That's a spirit thing right there. So, yay. Having just spent 2 days in the recording studio reading my book, The Awakened Way, for the Audible version, I just read this wonderful exercise that's in the book in which we use mala beads or any beaded necklace or bracelet to see the oneness in each other. I don't have the time this evening to go through that exercise. If you're not yet familiar with it, you might want to pre-order the book because it's a good one. Really helps you see everybody, no matter if you resonate with them or not, as one part of this dynamic flow of source. Ooh. Okay. Let's see. I'm asking the team now, where do we go from here? They say take 2 questions and then we'll do some healing. Okay. I see a little baby on the screen there. That's puppy Gracie, who I don't think many of you have seen before.
No, I'm sorry. She's not feeling well, so she's being clingy.
Well, I have somebody that's going to get a dose of healing energy then.
Yeah. Okay. This is from Joe, and he is referring back to a question you had earlier in another session, Suzanne, when you described going into an antique store and feeling this dense energy and realizing all the objects in there had the energy of their owners, their former owners. So Joe asks, is there a way of clearing and releasing that energy? And if not, does that mean I shouldn't shop in thrift stores or antique stores?
Well, as I tune into this, the guides say that it would be nigh unto impossible for you to clear the energy from an entire store in a short visit. So that these are fields, and every single bit of furniture would have its own field of energy around it imbued with the energy of the people who owned it before. And again, not that these are evil people or bad people, but just people with different energy from your own. So you would feel that, and from a different era, perhaps, than your own. But you can certainly turn up your inner light before you go into a situation like that. Become aware. It's not putting up a wall that blocks the energy, but just becoming more filled with light so that it performs a sort of porous barrier for you. If you were to work in a situation, you could clear the air. That's in my book as well, ways of having energetic hygiene. You could clap and make sounds and use bells and crystals and use sage and Palo Santo and all those things. But in a store that's not your own for a short visit, that's really not something that you could energetically do, but you can shift your own energy.
For one particular object in that store, if you were interested in purchasing
sure.
that,
If you bought that and you brought it home. Yeah.
Okay.
If you bought one piece, if you're drawn to it and you bring it home, even if you don't sense anything different about it, your intention does this. So you realize that everything is basically consciousness. Everything, including your body, is a projection from the one mind of consciousness. So you dissolve your awareness and your identity as this human being, and you become pure consciousness to the best of your ability. You merge in awareness with the energy field, and you instill it with pure light, clearing it with your intention that it be restored to its natural state with no lingering energy fields of anybody who has been in contact with it before. So that's just mentally. You could certainly sage it or ring bells around it, any method, but all of those methods work because they're working in concert with a very clear intention from the highest possible state. Good question. Was that one or two questions?
That was one.
That was one. Okay, one more then.
One more. All right. This one is from Debbie. It's really caught my eye. It's intriguing. When our loved ones come through and speak to us through mediums from across the veil, is there a part of their soul that can also be split off and living another life on Earth or another world at the same time they are communicating with us through a medium?
This is a timely question, and I am not going to answer it. I'm going to ask you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, because tomorrow morning we are releasing another Moment of Truth video in which my guides channeled an answer about reincarnation, the nature of the soul. Can the soul be in different places at once? Can we talk to someone if they've already reincarnated? Very common question with an answer straight from the spirit world. Lynette, I think who scheduled it? What time is that one going to pop up on my channel? Anybody know? Lynette's checking. So just go to YouTube, search Suzanne Giesemann, go to the playlist Moments of Truth, and you'll be able to find that one tomorrow.
You asked me to post it, Suzanne. So let's say I will post it at 8 a.m.
Oh, okay, there we go. No, Lynette's shaking her head.
Oh, no? Oh, did she assign it or schedule it? Okay.
2 o'clock. I don't know why 2, but that's the time.
2 o'clock. 2 o'clock. Okay.
Yeah, that one will be answered tomorrow. Good deal. All right. So speaking of healing, let's realize that we are all souls, and healing is, may I say that? Yes, nothing more and nothing less than the life force in perfect balance, aligned with the highest energy, flowing to an energy field that is not perfectly balanced. And that higher energy brings it into a state of balance through a process called entrainment. So all we need to do is volunteer to be a channel, a conduit of the life force. So picture a waterfall flowing through you. You don't have to generate it. Just allow as much of it to flow through you as possible and flow out to anyone or anything, like a dog, in need of healing. So if you would help me, please, I would love to send more healing energy to Beth Passakarnis, that her bone marrow transplant graft perfectly and that her side effects, which are great, are alleviated. And then also to anybody else in your soul family here on physical earth, all of you, who is in need of healing. And we have found, and it's been proven, that if you don't think about yourself, greater healing takes place. So I'm sure there are many of you in need of healing, going through challenges, but take your awareness off of yourself and allow yourself to be healed by the others in this group, as you also join in sending healing to others. You don't have to be in perfect health to do this. Spirit's going to do this through you. They need you to be the conduit, okay? So that's our intention. We're going to spend just a few moments. I see somebody putting out requests there for specific healing for specific people. Absolutely. And I can't follow everybody on there, but that's our goal. Anybody who is in need of healing is going to be receiving it from this group right now. Mary Reed's brother, I believe, is one we mentioned right there, who just had a cancer diagnosis. So we're going to just trust that Spirit knows exactly where this energy is supposed to go. So let's just become quiet. I'll guide you through this, and then I'm going to ask Sanaya if they have a message for all of us to come in after this. We'll just spend maybe 1 or 2 or 3 minutes just channeling the energy from your heart. So please just join us now. One heart here, one body of spirit, all of us together. Even if you're watching later, we're harnessing this same energy. Close your eyes, please, and visualize a shaft of white light in which you're sitting. That's the life force flowing through you. And as you breathe in, allow even more of it to come into your very being. And you can hold your hands up or not, but use your visualization to send energy out to those most in need of it now. And just hold that focus as the energy flows. You can turn up the light with gratitude. Please know that healing has taken place through your efforts. All of you, if you could see yourselves now as we see you, would see yourselves as these powerful waterfalls, using the analogy that we have given you earlier this evening, flowing quite strongly, for you are that porous field of energy of which Suzanne has spoken earlier this evening, able to channel the life force in perhaps ways that you are not aware of. Do not focus only on the physical frame. In this way, you limit yourself. You, if you could see yourselves as we do, would see this flow fluctuating. There are times, perhaps this evening, after being in the presence of such a strong flow, not just through this channel, but through all of you, soaking it up like sponges, may feel a bit depleted. This is because you are not used to this higher force. But after a time, just like going to your gymnasium and strengthening your muscles through the repeated exertion, can accustom yourselves to holding more and more of this. And the more that can flow through you, the more that you can send outward. We see you as lights in which the luminosity increases and decreases dependent upon the physical state of all the cells in your body, but these are directly affected by the thoughts going through the mental body and the emotional body, all working together that affect how brightly or how dimly you shine. Whether we speak in terms of a light or the flow of water, it is consciousness that is flowing, your basic essence. And so when you feel depleted, it is because more of this than you could handle has been going through you. And so the more you sit in the silence and simply become aware of this flow and invite more of it into you, the more you can handle it without growing fatigued. Could you but see how brightly all of you are shining now as a result of, number one, the decision to be present in this energy. Number two, being open to more of this flow. And number three, your intention to be a light unto the world. You would understand why you are shining so much more brightly. You will hold this for a while. It will be with you in human terms for several days. Perhaps you will notice this in greater peace throughout your day. But you can maintain this flow through meditative practices and most importantly, by paying attention to the thoughts. This is awareness, and awareness is another word for this consciousness that flows through you. So do be aware, and you will notice those very human behaviors and when they are out of alignment with this beautiful flow that you are experiencing now. It is quite simple once you are aware to channel more and more of this and keep that light burning brightly between the times when you sit in pure awareness of your true nature. Thank you for allowing us a chance to speak with you directly this evening, but do know that your guides speak to you and through you and as you all of your human time. You are part of one lineage that comes from one source. And so when we say they speak as you, you will understand that all of you speak as the voice of the one. We bid you good night. They just told me I won't need chocolate tonight. That's a good thing. I usually leave these sessions and just eat a bunch of chocolate, and then I'm really thrown off for days. So I think that's an improvement for me as well. Darn it. I would actually like the chocolate, but I don't like the after effect. Thank you, guys. Oh, goodness. Look how the time has flown. I hope that you have benefited from this evening. I know that my team and I benefit from the love that you send us. We love your emails. Valerie loves fielding them for us. And we love being on this journey with you. So hope to see you back here next month. Hope to see you on YouTube. Check out the upcoming podcasts and definitely that answer about reincarnation tomorrow. Thank you to my team. Thank you, everybody. And I will see you next month. Bye-bye.